What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and today we are going to demystify power conditioners. I've got the Vinshine Audio X Kinky Studio collaboration product. It's called the Taihang. It's right here. You've probably seen it in the background of a lot of my videos over the past few months. I've been using it almost non-stop. I've tried all kinds of different things. I've tried plugging in just my preamp or just my mono blocks, or even just one of my mono blocks, just my DAC, and then combinations of products. So what I'm going to do is demystify this thing, what it's all about, what it's supposed to do on paper, right? And then I'm also going to tell you if there was any sonic benefits. Was it able to eliminate hum? Did it make music sound better? And things like that, right? So before we jump into all that, two things. First, I've got my laptop in front of me and I've got an email open. And in this email, I asked Alvin to break down the specs for me on what this thing does in as layman's terms as possible so anyone could understand it. And I'm pretty much just going to read his responses to you guys in a second here. Second thing, all prices on the Vinshine Audio website are in Singaporean dollars. And I just have to mention this because anytime I review something that Vinshine sells, I get someone in the comments that's like, dude, I went to their website. It's way more expensive than what you said. Yeah, that's Singaporean dollar. When you convert it to USD, it's like 0.7 is about the conversion. So on Vinshine's website, the Taihang is listed at $1,694. That is Singaporean. Converted to US, it's about 1,250, depending on the exchange rate. It might be 1,260 or 1,245, right? So on and so forth. Also, last thing I want to mention about price, guys, if you like what I have to say about this product by the tail end of the video and you're considering buying one, you may want to click add to cart sooner rather than later. As we all know, over the past few years, prices have only continued to increase. It is the most common comment I see on my older videos is, man, this product used to be cheaper, man. I'm watching this video 2 years later now, and this product is like $100 more. Yes, that is the way of the world, unfortunately, guys. So again, if you like what I have to say, you're thinking about buying it sooner rather than later. I don't think prices are going to go down. So first and foremost, what does this power conditioner do? What do they say, right? Well, they say it helps with surge protection. It does EMI cancellation. That's electromagnetic interference. DC absorption and current expansion. Now, I understand what some of those things are, but some of those things just sounded like magic. So I emailed Alvin and I pretty much said that. I was like, hey, I'm not an electrician. I don't think most of my audience is. What does this stuff mean in as layman's terms as possible? And these are his answers. So I said, hey, Alvin, surge protection. This one seems pretty simple. I'm guessing it just protects the connected gear from irregular changes in voltage, maybe from the power company, blackouts, or bad weather. Is that right? And Alvin was like, yeah, that's right. That is exactly what surge protection is. I was like, cool. I got 1 out of 4. The second item, EMI cancellation. I said, okay, Alvin, I know EMI is bad, but like, where does it come from? Is it in the air? Is it created from other equipment? Like where does this stuff come from? Alvin said electromagnetic interference can be man-made or naturally generated. Man-made EMI is mainly generated by equipment that uses transformers, coils, transmission devices, etc. A change in current, the power, will generate some EMI or EMF also, and the current flow. It cannot be seen, but can be measured by specialized equipment. Power cable is going to be like your classic example, right? So it helps with that. And then DC absorption. I said, okay, Alvin, is this like DC offset? I've heard that's bad for speakers. And he's like, yeah, kind of. DC is bad for the loudspeaker, but that's not the same as DC offset found in the AC mains. The DC offset found in AC mains could be caused by for various reasons. For example, an AC-DC power converter failure. Such offset is usually fairly small, but it can cause transformer hum or your products to run hotter than they should. So that's good that it fixes that. Then the last item it mentions in the spec sheet is current expansion. And I just guessed what I thought that was. I said, Alvin, this sounds kind of like a reservoir similar to maybe an amplifier having a lot of capacitors. Is this something similar? And he's like, yeah, it's similar to that. The large inductors store energy and deliver them when the connected loads demand more power. So the current expansion is going to be really important for anyone that's in an older home, or maybe you're the last house on the block from the power drop. And you've noticed that maybe when there's a swing in dynamics or peaks in your music, your lights may dim a little bit, perhaps. That is your amplifier trying to get more current and your wall not having perhaps enough current for it. So you may want to consider a power conditioner if that happens to you, right? I know a lot of people might think that's normal, but it's not. I promise you. I live in a new home. My home's a 2017 build. It doesn't matter how hard the bass hits or anything. My lights do not dim, guys. Your lights should not dim when your music is pumping. If it is, you've got a little bit of a power flow restriction. So that's what it does on paper. I believe all that. That makes sense to me. I hope it made sense to you. But were there any sonic improvements or benefits? For me, the answer is absolutely yes. And I'm going to take you through my journey. But I want you to know your mileage may vary. It is my belief that power conditioning products, each person's experience may be a little bit unique based on your connected equipment and your home. So I'm simply sharing what happened for me in my home with my system. So first thing I did was connect my preamp only, the Kinky Studio EX-P7. And right away, I noticed a darker background, treble details became more effortless, easier to hear, more micro detail, more layering in that treble region. I noticed that in the mid-range also, singers' voices became just a little bit more effortless. Nuanced sounds in the mid-range region became easier to hear as well. When your background is darker, those are generally the benefits you get. It's kind of like adding room treatment. Room treatment is a way to kind of like physically darken the background noise, right? Of course, it helps with other things as well, like reflections and such, but I'm not talking about that here today. So that's what I noticed just by plugging in my preamp. So then I unplugged my preamp and I plugged in just my mono blocks, and I was really curious what this was going to do because I have the Kinky Studio EX B7s. I've had them for like 5 or 6 years now. I never turn them off, and my left mono block amp has a little bit of hum. It always has, and I always assumed it's just, hey, it's not a big deal. My rack is an absolute mess in the back. I've got power cables everywhere, and I can't hear the hum from the listening position. But where I'm sitting right now, I could hear the hum from that left mono block, right? Especially if I get down on the ground. So I plugged in my left and my right monoblock amps into the Taihang. My preamp was not plugged into the Taihang. Immediately, that transformer hum went away. Immediately. That was really awesome. And then I noticed the exact same benefits in terms of sonic upgrades, but not to as great of a degree as it was with my preamp. It seemed like my preamp gave the biggest improvement, but also plugging in my monoblocks, I noticed the same benefits. Treble was easier to hear, more micro details, nuanced details just stood out of the soundstage more. Details that I normally had to listen a little bit more critically seemed to just be there, a little bit more refinement and such and things like that, right? So then I disconnected my monoblocks and I plugged in only my DAC, right? The live harmony with the UDDC or micro DDC. I thought it was mu because they use the mu symbol for their DDC, but then I looked up that symbol and the mu symbol also means micro in Greek. So the micro DDC. My micro DDC is plugged into an LHY power supply. I did not plug that LHY power supply into the Taihang. My live harmony DAC is normally just plugged into a regular AC receptacle. So I unplugged it from there and I plugged it into the Taihang. So only the live harmony was plugged into the Taihang. I'm not sure I noticed any difference with this change, honestly, guys. I really tried to listen, and on some songs, and I'm sure you guys have had this experience too, where you're like, I think I hear some like a change, but like you're trying so hard. It's like maybe I convinced myself there was a change. I'm just not sure. And in my opinion, as a reviewer, when I have to listen that critically for the change, I will go ahead and say there probably was no change. For me, plugging in the DAC only did not seem to change much. My guess is perhaps the live harmony DAC has a really solid voltage section already. Who knows? Again, I'm not an electrician. I'm not a circuit expert. I couldn't tell you why there wasn't much of a difference, or I also couldn't tell you why my preamp seemed to experience the biggest difference. But using the live harmony DAC plugged directly into the Taihang only, I didn't feel anything really changed. And if something did change, I didn't pick up on it, right? Then I tried the UDDC only, being plugged into the Taihang. And it was a case of more different, not better. Again, I couldn't really put my finger on it, so I kind of chalked that up to maybe nothing. But the UDDC, or micro DDC, sorry, I'm trying to practice saying it correctly. The micro DDC is normally plugged into a LHY power supply, so it's already getting a solid amount of current. That may explain why I did not notice any difference with the micro DDC. So this has essentially been my experience. I noticed, in a nutshell, plugging in my preamp had the biggest difference. Plugging in my monoblock amps also gave me a good improvement, but plugging in the DACs didn't seem to make a big difference. Oh, I did also try Live's micro DAC. And here's what's interesting. I really expected the micro DAC to have a big difference because the micro DAC uses like a switcher. It doesn't have like a big beefy power supply inside of it like the Harmony. But the micro DAC, like the full-size Live Harmony, I'm not sure I heard much of a change. So again, I'm going to assume whatever kind of power filtering circuitry is inside that micro DAC is just good enough. And perhaps my home's electricity is good enough that I did not notice any sonic improvements. And again, remember guys, your mileage may vary, right? In your home, for example, you may have, dirty electricity or something, or more irregularities. Maybe in your home, a DAC will be the biggest change, and maybe your preamp will not experience much change, right? Because again, guys, everyone's connected equipment is different. Everyone's home electricity is a little bit different, right? So I did try a couple other tests. I have an amplifier. I don't want to mention the brand, but I've had an amplifier here for a long time now that's always hummed. It's always had transformer hum. And I was like, I wonder if the Taihang is going to fix that. I've always felt like it's just a noisy transformer. I don't think it's my home's electricity's fault because I use so many other amplifiers here. Most of them don't have any noise whatsoever, except this one amplifier that's always made some noise, and its hum is pretty loud. I can hear it from the listening position. It always annoys me, so I don't use it that often. I plugged it into the Taihang and the hum went away. And I found that to be really interesting. And also the amp did sound, that amp was a very affordable amp. And I noticed quite the sonic improvement for that amp, especially in treble refinement and quality overall. But what I'm guessing is going on there perhaps is, because it's like, hey, why do most of my amps not have hum, but this one does? And this thing that conditions power seems to fix it. My guess is with the amplifiers, right, when there's transformer hum, maybe it is a result of your home's electricity. And the reason one may do it and one may not is perhaps going to come down to the filtering design within each amplifier, right? Again, Nemo Propaganda is not an electrician. If someone out there is smarter than me, feel free to correct me. I do not mind. My ego is not too big to pretend like I know everything, guys. So that's the Taihang. Let's answer one question though. These differences I experienced in sound, the sonic upgrade, are they worth $1,250 or $1,260? Yeah, I think so. I think it is worth it. If you're looking for those the upgrades that darken your background, in my opinion, are some of the best upgrades one can do to their system. So I definitely recommend it. And I think if you've been interested in power conditioning, check this one out. It's small, it's fairly compact, beautiful casework. Oh, one more thing. A lot of people asked me this question and I thought it was so interesting because it was also one of the first questions I asked Alvin from Vinshine Audio. Because as beautiful as this is, you guys can see my rack is so full. Even the top of my rack is full. I have the Choco E-May, I have the micro DDC, the micro DAC, and the Live Harmony. I have no space in my rack. So I said, hey, Alvin, I think if I were to buy this as a customer, I'd probably just shove it behind my rack on the floor, like with the front panel just like facing down on the carpet. Is that okay? And he was like, yeah, totally. That's exactly how I use it in my home. And I was like, awesome. So for those of you that are wondering like, hey, can it be vertical on the floor? The answer is totally yes. So that's the review, guys. That's Power Conditioners Demystified. I hope that helped. If you got any questions, this YouTube channel does have a free Discord server. If your question is fairly complex, I do ask that you use that Discord server. If your question is on the simple side or you just want to say what's up, feel free to use the YouTube comment section below. Until next time, take care.